Nobody expected Eric DeCosta to be this direct when talking about Zay Flowers. With questions surrounding the future of the Ravens' top wide receiver, Baltimore's general manager decided to open up and made comments that immediately caught the attention of the entire NFL. And I'll tell you this, when someone in his position carefully chooses his words, it's worth paying attention. What stood out to me wasn't just the fact that DeCosta praised Flowers. It was the confidence behind his words. But there's an important detail in this situation that many people may have overlooked. And once you understand what's really behind these comments, it becomes much easier to see why Ravens fans are following this contract situation so closely. If there's one thing that became clear after Eric DeCosta's comments, it's that the Ravens have no interest in taking the risk of losing Zay Flowers. Baltimore's general manager addressed the situation directly and delivered a message that, in my opinion, should have excited a lot of fans. During the interview, he said, "I love Zay. Zay wants to be here. We want Zay here." And when someone in such an important position says something like that, it's something you have to pay attention to. To me, that quote shows much more than simple praise. It shows how important Flowers has become in the franchise's plans. After all, executives are usually very careful when they talk about ongoing contract negotiations. So hearing DeCosta show this much excitement gives the impression that Baltimore sees Flowers as a key piece of the team's future. Another thing that stands out is that the interest appears to go both ways. According to DeCosta, Flowers also wants to remain in Baltimore, and that makes a huge difference. A lot of contract negotiations become complicated because one side isn't fully committed to the future. In this case, it feels like both the player and the franchise are trying to find a way to stay together for many years. And honestly, after everything Flowers has shown recently, I completely understand why the Ravens are so interested in keeping him. He has become one of the biggest weapons in the offense and has earned Lamar Jackson's trust. But this desire to get a new deal done isn't built only on words. Flowers' numbers help explain why Baltimore is so determined to make this extension happen. And that's where the situation starts becoming even more interesting. After making it clear that the Ravens want Zay Flowers to remain on the roster, Eric DeCosta shared another update that immediately grabbed attention. According to him, the conversations between the team and Flowers representatives have been positive. During the interview, the general manager said, "We've had good conversations. It's certainly a work in progress. I'm optimistic about it. And honestly, that's one of the most encouraging things a Ravens fan could hear right now. When a contract negotiations start becoming difficult, executives usually become much more cautious with their words. Many times, they avoid talking about the situation or give vague answers to avoid creating expectations. But that wasn't the case here. DeCosta spoke with confidence, showed calmness, and gave the impression that both sides are building a path toward an agreement. That doesn't mean the deal is already done, but it does show that the conversations are active and moving in a positive direction. Another thing that caught my attention was the way DeCosta talked about the future. At one point, he said, "I feel like at some point we'll get it done." That sentence may sound simple, but it carries a lot of weight. After all, someone in his position usually doesn't make a statement like that publicly if they believe the negotiations are close to falling apart. Instead, it shows there is real confidence that a contract will eventually be completed. But there's an important reason why the Ravens are putting so much effort into getting this extension done. We're not talking about an average player or someone who is simply a future project. We're talking about a player who just had the best season of his career and became one of the most important pieces of Baltimore's offense. And when you look at the numbers Flowers produced last season, it becomes even easier to understand why the Ravens are so focused on reaching an agreement. If anyone still had doubts about how important Zay Flowers is to the Ravens, all they need to do is look at what he accomplished last season. The wide receiver led the team in receptions, targets, and receiving yards, establishing himself as the biggest name in Baltimore's passing attack. In a league that continues to depend more and more on elite wide receivers, finding a player capable of producing at this level is extremely valuable. Flowers finished the season with 86 receptions, 118 targets, and an impressive 1,211 receiving yards. Those numbers put him among the most productive wide receivers in the NFL. But the most impressive part is that his impact wasn't only about statistics. Anyone who watched him play saw a player capable of changing games with a single play, whether it was through his speed, his explosiveness, or his ability to create extra yards after catch. Another factor that explains his value is the connection he has built with Lamar Jackson. Every great quarterback needs reliable weapons, and Flowers has become one of Lamar's favorite targets. It's no surprise that Jackson has already shown his appreciation for his teammate publicly. When a quarterback at Lamar Jackson's level trusts a receiver, the organization usually does everything possible to protect and maintain that partnership. But there's one thing that always comes up when a player starts producing at a high level. Money. The better the numbers become, the higher the expectations usually are when it's time for a new contract. And that's where one of the biggest questions surrounding Flowers comes into play. How much are the Ravens willing to pay to keep one of their most important stars? That question sits at the center of these negotiations and could be the deciding factor in determining when this deal gets done. Despite all the optimism coming from the Ravens, there is still one major topic surrounded by uncertainty: the money. Right now, nobody knows exactly how much Zay Flowers and his representatives are asking for in a long-term extension. And when we're talking about the NFL, this is usually the most complicated part of any negotiation, because it's not enough for the player and the team to simply want to stay together. The numbers have to make sense for both sides. According to reports around the league, some people believe Flowers is not yet viewed in the same category as the receivers making around $30 million per season. That is an extremely exclusive group in the NFL, reserved for players considered true superstars at the position. Because of that, finding the right balance between what Flowers believes he is worth and what the Ravens are willing to pay could take some time. In my opinion, this is the biggest obstacle standing between Flowers and a new contract, because when both sides want the same outcome, the conversation usually comes down to the financial details. How many years will the deal be? How much guaranteed money will be included? What will the average salary per season look like? These questions may seem technical to fans, but they often determine whether a major contract negotiation succeeds or fails. The good news for Ravens fans is that the timeline is still working in Baltimore's favor. There is no immediate pressure to solve everything overnight. The two sides still have weeks to continue talking, adjust the numbers, and get closer to an agreement. And that leads us to the next important part of the situation: how much time Baltimore has to turn all this optimism into an official contract.
If you're enjoying this breakdown, smash that like button to help the purple flock grow.
Even though many fans are anxious for an answer, the reality is that the Ravens still have a comfortable window to finish this negotiation. Baltimore's veteran players are not expected to report to training camp until July 28th. That means there is still important time available for both sides to continue conversations without the pressure of regular season responsibilities. And even if the deal is not completed before training camp begins, that doesn't mean there is any reason for panic. In the NFL, it's not unusual for contract negotiations to continue through the preseason. In many cases, major extensions are finalized only a few weeks before the regular season starts. As long as both sides remain engaged, the possibility of an agreement stays open. Another factor helping maintain this positive feeling is the tone Eric DECOSTA used throughout the entire interview. At no point did he show concern or suggest that negotiations were becoming difficult. Instead, when talking about Flowers, the general manager made sure to praise him once again, saying, "We love Zay. He's a phenomenal football player. His energy is infectious." That doesn't sound like something someone would say if they believed they were close to losing an important player. Now, the biggest question Ravens fans have is simple: when will the official announcement come? Because when you look at everything that has been said, the mutual interest, Flowers' production on the field, and the confidence coming from the front office, it feels like this agreement is more about when it happens rather than if it happens. The only thing left to find out is whether the extension comes before training camp, during the preseason, or closer to the season opener against the Colts. But one thing is certain: this is a situation worth following until the very end. After everything Eric DECOSTA revealed, the message from the Ravens is very clear. Keeping Zay Flowers as an important part of the franchise's future is a major priority. The general manager's comments showed confidence, respect for player, and most importantly, they made it clear that both sides have interest in continuing this partnership for many years. Of course, There are still details that need to be worked out before anything becomes official. Like every major NFL negotiation, the financial side could end up being a deciding factor. But when you look at DECOSTA's tone, Flowers' importance in the offense, and everything the receiver accomplished last season, it's hard not to believe Baltimore will make a strong effort to get this extension done. Now I want to hear your opinion. Do you believe Zay Flowers deserves a star-level contract? And how much do you think the Ravens should pay to keep him in Baltimore? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.
And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out, and I'll see you in the next video.